Hi everyone, and welcome to video number 33 in my Richard Laymon horror novel review series. Today I'm talking about Bite from 1996. So let's get straight into it. Here is Steve Crisp's cover art. As always, it's a really good one. Perfectly decent for a pulpy horror novel. It comes in at 378 pages. It's one of his medium-length novels, and here's the back, which really sets up the silliness of this. It says, "Tick-tock, tick-tock. Sam's in the wardrobe with a hammer in one hand, a wooden stake in the other, and a heart full of fear. It's almost midnight. Cat's on the bed, face down and nude. Sam's former girlfriend, the only woman he's ever loved. Together they wait because the vampire's coming." Yeah, this is typical of some books he was writing towards the end of his career, where the synopsis isn't actually a synopsis. It doesn't tell you what the book is about. It just kind of sets up the opening scene. A similar thing happened in Come Out Tonight and After Midnight. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of plot, this is pretty thin. There's a lot of action, but not much story. And so the story is this. This 26-year-old narrator, it's first person, called Sam. There's a knock on his door one night. He opens it, and there's this girl from his childhood called Kat. He's not seen her in 10 years, but he was madly in love with her 10 years ago. And she tells him that she's got a problem. Her problem is that for the last year or so, almost every night, a vampire has been visiting her in the dead of night, sucking her blood and doing all kinds of awful things to her. So she asks him, "Would you mind coming over to my apartment now and helping me to kill him?" Sam, being a Richard Laymon character, says, "Yep, no problem, no questions asked." He packs a bag and off they go. And they do kill him. The vampire's name is Elliot. Elliot the vampire. You know, Dracula, Nosferatu, Lestat, Radu, and Elliot. They do kill him, and then that's like the first 30 pages, and it's a lot of fun. It's fantastic fun. But then it all goes off the hill, because the rest of the book, the next 340 pages, is them trying to dispose of the body, and along the way they run into some mishaps. They come across this villain called, his nickname is Snow White. There's this other two strange characters called Peggy and Donnie. But honestly, it's all just kind of aimless. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's a great opening, but it's one of those things similar to After Midnight, where it's like Laymon had an idea for a short story. It would have made a fantastic short story or a 100-page novella, but he stretched it out to the length of a novel, and this thing is so padded. So let me get into a few more details then. The characterization is weak because there are very few characters in this. There's only 5, really. There's Kat and Sam, the two main people. Then there's Snow White, the villain, and then there's, like I said, towards the end of the book, we come across these two other characters, Peggy and Donnie. There's a 6th character, Kat's ex-husband, who she killed. Spoilers all throughout this. Sorry to have not told you that from the beginning, but anyway, there will be spoilers here. So 6 characters, including Kat's ex-husband. Now, yeah, Kat is the main problem here, because she's supposed to be one of the strong, resourceful Richard Laymon female characters, and sometimes she is. There's a scene in a restaurant where she shows great tenacity and intelligence and strength in getting them away from Snow White. But then that totally contradicts everything else Laymon is telling us about Kat, because, like I said, she was married to this sadistic maniac who was an obstetrician, but he uses those skills to forcibly abort their baby. And then he repeatedly rapes her for the sole reason to get her pregnant so that he can then sadistically abort children over and over again. Completely stupid and cartoonish, but which usually I don't mind in a Laymon book, so long as it doesn't totally contradict everything else we're supposed to believe about a character, in this case Kat. On the first day of Kat's honeymoon with this guy, he was carving his name into her. You know, but then sometime later we're told that she was enjoying drinks, fine wine and good food with him in a restaurant celebrating her birthday. So Kat is all over the place here. And I can go along with the whole battered wife syndrome idea, but that doesn't apply here, honestly. I mean, someone like Kat would get out of that ridiculous situation where some guy repeatedly raping her only to abort the result. Her husband, who's a doctor, it's ridiculous. So that was very silly. Sam, oh Jesus, I mean, Sam is, again, the narrator, first person, yeah, 26 years old. Remember that detail, 26 years old, all right? And he is, again, obsessed with catching a glimpse of breast. Now, in the course of reading this book, like the plot, it fell apart. The cover here has come detached. So I ended up reading not that version of the book, but I have it here in this dual edition along with Body Ride. So I'd like to give a reading, if I may. just to give an idea of Sam, right? So they're driving through the desert, and along the way, Kat falls asleep. So he does what any Laymon character would do and tries to catch a glimpse of her breast. Now, this is ridiculous. This is like I'm not going to read all of this, but this is where it begins. All right, here where my finger is. It says, because of how she slouched in the seats, the front of her shirt was rumpled. It appeared to have a few small waves up the middle. Being a woman's shirt, or blouse I suppose, it buttoned so the overlap faced my way. I could see in. An opening between two buttons, a bulging rumple, and my eyes were all lined up to let me see inside the shirt and view the left side of her right breast. She wasn't wearing a bra. Right, so here's a way. There we go. He's staring at her breast for the next page and a half. Let me pick it up here. Hidden by her shirt from the morning sunlight, the visible section of Kat's breast was dusky with a soft mellow glow. A glow like the light that finds its way through curtains into a bedroom on a sunny day. It turned her breast the colour of honey. The small portion that I could see looked warm and smooth, and for no good reason more naked than any skin I'd ever seen before. Can I repeat? He is 26 years old, and this is how he's behaving at the side of a breast. He goes on and on. Now, let me pick it up here. After making sure I was still in my lane, then looking all around for about half a minute, I returned my attention to Kat. Something had changed. I could hardly believe my luck. The gap in her shirt had grown. A button must have come loose while I was looking away. Now, through the pursed opening, I could see probably half her breast. Half is italicized. So now we can see half of it. And let's go down a little bit more here. And now it says, I could see so much of it now. Much is italicized. Let's go down a little bit more. No other vehicles were near enough to worry about, so I looked over at Kat. Impossible. The gap had expanded again. And now we can see almost all of it. 2, 3, 4 pages of this guy doing a running commentary on how much more of her breast he's able to catch a glimpse of. Oh, yeah, and all of that scene takes place while they are being kidnapped. In the back of the car is Snow White, who has just beaten the crap out of Kat and him, and he's forced him to get into the car, and he's fallen asleep on the back seat, but they're being kidnapped during this. And Sam has just watched the love of his life get beaten up by him. But what's on his mind is not any of that stuff, but oh my god, I can see the side of her breast while she's sleeping. So yeah, it is classic Laymon in that regard, but maybe a little bit too much classic Laymon, if that makes sense. Now, so much for the characterization. It is not good, let me say. Another, like, annoying detail of this book is just the unbelievability of it. I've said many times in these reviews, none of us go to Laymon books for, you know, believable plots, but there is a line somewhere, and this is just a bit too silly. For example, you know, there's a section where they come to this petrol station, and it's a real chance for them to do something, and Kat says before she goes in to buy supplies, she says, can you think of anything I should do? And they both agree that telling the cashier to call the police is not a good idea. They say something like, yeah, the police can't help us. There's nothing the police can do to help us. What on earth are you talking about? You know exactly where you are. You have a full description of the guy who is taking you and now these other 2 people hostage. You have the license plate of the car they are in. You are looking at the guy. The police can help you. This is actually what the police do. This is one of the most escapable situations I've ever heard about. There are so many ways you could get out of this situation if you didn't keep on doing the dumbest imaginable thing in order to get the plot going. Yeah, another thing about how stupid this plot is, it's so padded, like I said. The middle section of this book is just a road trip, a very dull road trip where nothing happens. And they decide to have a picnic in the van during it. They are getting drunk. Kat gets a 12-pack of beer. And by this point, I mean, I don't really want to get too much into the plot because it's too stupid, but by this point, Kat and Sam are alone in their car, and they are pursuing a van in front of them. Inside this van is Snow White, who has now taken hostage another couple. It's this young girl and her, they think, 12-year-old brother, Donnie. And Snow White is threatening to murder Donnie, the boy, if they don't agree to follow him to some place in the desert, where presumably he's going to do horrible things to everybody. So the whole reason why they're going along with this is because they say we have to save Donnie, this boy who they've never seen, but we have to save him. All right, well, if that's your reason for doing this, why are you now getting hammered? They say something like, we're going to die anyway, so let's just be merry and have a good time. But what on earth are you talking about? the whole reason you're doing this is to save the kid. Otherwise, why don't you just turn around and drive off? Who's forcing you to do any of this other than your own supposed conscience and desire to save the child? So if that's your motivation, why then are you getting drunk and having a party and saying we're going to die anyway, so let's go out hammered? Really, really, really stupid. Now then, the ending of the book as well, should say something about that. There isn't really an ending. This would have been a better book with an epilogue where they go back to the wilderness and we find out what actually happened. But it's okay to leave things to the reader's imagination, but you have to actually give them something worth pondering. Here it's just, so was he a vampire or not? Was Elliot a vampire or not? Which was the question we started the book with. So nothing has really changed. We've not come anywhere during the course of this book. Yeah, so as you can probably tell, I don't especially recommend this, as it's just so padded, like I said. I mean, as funny as the setup is, what real reason do Kat and Sam have to believe that this guy is a vampire? They know that his fangs aren't real. He just seems to be your usual Richard Laymon maniac. Why are they so certain that he's a vampire? And why is Sam so quickly going along with that idea and effectively committing murder on her behalf? Just after they kill him, like I said, they go off to try and dispose of the body. And during that first journey, when they're in the car and calm down, instead of listening to Kat prattle on about parenting skills and these boring speeches she keeps giving her, wouldn't that be a good time for Sam to start asking questions about why exactly she thinks that dead guy is a vampire? How did she meet him? We do eventually find out how Kat met him in a story that inevitably involves yet more gang rape that she instantly recovers from. But it's way later in the book, almost as an afterthought, like Laymon figured out he should probably try and explain any of this. So also at the ending, we get a really bizarre backstory for Peggy and Danny and how they came to be together. But again, it feels like something Laymon just made up on the spot and never really bothered to go back and ask if it made any kind of sense. This book, it really is from that awkward phase of his writing. You know, his classic period was 1987 to 1994, and in between 1994 and 1998, when he got back on form, he put out some really subpar books like Body Rides, Quake, After Midnight, the novella Fiends, and this one, and it just feels like nobody was manning quality control. Not him, not his editor, not his publishers. There are even basic errors in this book. For example, there's at one point Kat says she was in hospital for 2 weeks following the first attack by Elliot. That's how bad the attack was. But about 20-30 pages later, she claims that Elliot visited her the very next night after the first attack, which she says she had just come back from the hospital. So what are you talking about? I thought you were in hospital for 2 weeks. Now you're saying you were back home the next day and being raped again. There are very long, rambling passages where we do nothing except read about them eating cheese and crackers in the van and drinking beer. They should have been edited out. After the third or fourth repetition of what they're eating, that's when an editor steps in and says, come on, this is just too much padding. You know, what I'll say good about this novel is that the first half is, not half maybe, but the first 100-150 pages are really good, right up until Snow White takes them hostage. I really enjoyed it. I was having a lot of fun, but it just takes a massive nosedive because it's obvious that Laymon had no idea where to guide this story. First half great, second half a massive slog to get through with almost no payoff. It's just a long, tedious journey to a very bland destination. Said it before, I'll say it again. This could have been a fantastic short story or 100-page novella, but as it is, it's just a relatively poor novel. And I think that's all I have to say about it. It's not recommended, unfortunately. I would really hate for someone to read this as their first Laymon book because they'd get the wrong impression of his greatness. Like I said, I mean, Laymon was a master of his craft from about 1987, from something like The Beast House, up until 1994, like Endless Nights. He wrote just a string of masterpieces between those years. The Stake, Funland, Endless Night, Savage, the list goes on and on and on. But then he did have that 3-year dip when he was apparently totally out of ideas and just churning out any tired idea he could come up with. And then for some, I don't know how it happened, but he really did get back on form in about 1998 when he came out with the Midnight Tour and Come Out Tonight and Among the Missing and just another traveling vampire show, Night in the Lonesome October. he came out with another string of masterpieces. So whatever was going on during this phase of his career, this wasn't his greatest patch. But anyway, let me wrap this up then. So Bites from 1996, absolutely not one of his best books, and I don't recommend it. Thanks for watching this. If you did watch it to this point, it is New Year's Eve as I make this video. So I want to wish everyone a very, very happy and healthy new year. And, you know, let's hope that 2021 is less of a car crash than 2020 was in terms of pandemics and things like that. Thank you, everyone. Take care, and I'll be back in the new year to finish off this series. There's only 2 more books to go. Bye for now.